Good afternoon. I'm John Hart, the co-founder of C3 Solutions, the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions, and I'm the executive editor of our news magazine, C3. This is another edition of Right Voices, where we highlight people in the marketplace and policymakers who are elevating smart bottom-up solutions to today's economic and environmental challenges. Today, I'm honored to be joined by John McFadden. He's with Green Interchange. It's an organization Congressman Mark Green started, and we'll hear more about that from John in a minute. But he's led municipalities, organizations, and individuals in forest restoration and environmental education for many years. He's raised millions of dollars towards those goals and led thousands of volunteers in stream and restoration and reforestation projects. So we look forward to hearing about some of those stories and elevating the good work that John and Green Interchange are doing. So, John, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks so much, John. I'm super excited to be here. And as we've discussed, I'm super excited to see the work that C3 is doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Well, John, tell us a little bit about what your organization, your genesis story, Congressman Mark Green's role in it, and then how you guys got off the ground and what your mission is.
Well, our mission is to get out and plant trees and provide other natural solutions. You can call it green infrastructure, natural infrastructure solutions for some of the problems that are ailing some of our cities and towns these days. Congressman Green, back in 2018, 2019, as he told it, he's a big outdoorsman. He's a big conservationist. He loves to hunt and fish. And
in Tennessee, just to give people a frame of reference, you're
in Tennessee, right? Yeah. Right. Which we have got some of the greatest hunting and fishing out here of anywhere in the country. I just put it up against anybody. So sorry, I'm proud of my state. But as he told me, he was driving down the interstate one day and just kind of started wondering, why do we keep mowing these interstate interchanges? Why can't we reforest these areas? The trees, of course, will do everything from soaking up air pollutants from our cars, carbon included, as well as infiltrating water into the ground, which is going to reduce flooding. The trees will actually use a lot of the nutrients for their own growth, which the nutrients are pollution in excess. So he just had that idea. And if you know anything about Congressman Green, once he gets an idea that he really likes, he's going to get it done. So, which is a great quality to have, obviously. But he started meeting. He put together a board of directors, a group of fellows that he knew as a part of his network. He put them together and he started meeting with one of his folks that had helped him in his campaign here in Tennessee. He was a state legislator before he was a federal legislator, but started meeting with one of them, and through that person, they found me. And he had originally wanted the person who'd been working in politics with him to run the organization, and I started meeting with her on a semi-regular basis, and she finally went back to him and said, well, you just need to hire John to do this because he knows he's been doing it his whole career. So there you go. And then we launched it in August of 2020, the worst possible year to launch a nonprofit. But we launched it down on the Legislative Plaza in Tennessee. Many of our board members were there, and some of the news media. We had a press event. And so that's kind of how it got started.
That's great. And what's the scope of work you've been doing since then? What are some of the highlights that you're most proud of?
Well, one of the things that I had done in the past, we really are all about the bottom up solutions. What can we as citizens do to make the environment better? And there's nothing more powerful in our environment than trees, and how trees, they do all kinds of things. We think about the environmental benefits. Most people know those, so I'm going to skip them. Let's talk about the economic value. Of course, again, Tennessee, we're the nursery capital of the world. The southeastern United States is referred to as the wood basket of the world. So that's this huge economic, sector, the forestry industry. But Did you know that if you have a mature tree in your yard, your house is going to be worth 10, 15% more than a similar house down the street because of that tree? There's been a lot of good work done out, I think it was Texas A&M, around the value of trees, what I will call the non-consumptive value of trees. But if you shop, guys, you better listen to this one, because if you shop, if your wives are out there shopping, or you're shopping in these malls that have more green space around them, you better be careful, because you linger there. And when you linger there, you spend more money. So the greener it is, the more money that's being spent there. But there's also other sort of secondary economic impacts to the value of just pollution filtration. Communities that have more trees have less childhood asthma. There's less lung disease. There's less heart attacks, or fewer heart attacks in those communities. Obviously, that has huge implications for healthcare costs as well as our quality of life. So, as I like to say, I talk a lot about the triple bottom line: the environment, people, planet, and profits. Not only is a tree the most sustainable thing with regards to something that we as individuals can do, but if you're going to have that stool with the triple bottom line, you're going to be using the wood of the tree to make the legs. So, so trees are just really a sustainable piece.
And those three are people, planet, profit.
People, planet, and profit. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, because I think so often in the argument about and discussion about the environment, it's so polarized, and people think, well, if you care about the environment, then you must be a left-wing progressive. It's like, well, no, I know a lot of, I spoke to a group of conservative state treasurers recently, and I said, raise your hand if you believe in the Boy Scout. One version of the Boy Scout motto is, leave the campsite better off than you found it.
Right.
I mean, everybody raises their hand. Doesn't matter what group it is. And then I said, well, if you think that's nonsense, raise your hand. And of course, no one raises their hand.
Right.
No, there's a universal, almost common sense element to stewardship and conservation. But because the issue is so politicized, we're so hesitant just to come out and say, yeah, I really want to leave my land better off than I found it. And,
right.
And back, I'm looking at, I've got a 62-acre farm here. I'm looking out my window past my computer right now. There's a region, I think I may have told you about 8 acres that borders Israel Creek. I'm just 3 or 4 miles away from the Potomac River. So we planted over 1,000 trees, a lot along the creek bed for that very reason of preventing erosion. It's like a filtration. So you did a great job of explaining the economic benefits, but it's good. Go and touch on if you have any factoids. I mean, you can refer people to your website too, but
sure,
just anything that's good to know about how powerful trees are in our ecosystem, our natural ecosystem.
Well, you mentioned the trees on the creek bank, which, if you think about it, those trees and their roots, the roots are punching holes into the creek bank, and they are holding the sediment, holding the creek bank in, but they're also creating this sponge effect that can hold hundreds of millions of gallons of floodwaters. And it's not just holding it, it's filtering pollutants out of it. It's creating a wildlife habitat. That area next to the creek has 1.5 times the ecologic value as the upland area or the creek itself, because it's a transition zone. We learned all about that in school back in the day. I can't really remember much of it because it's been a day or two, but incredibly powerful there. I oftentimes wonder, well, if we restored the riparian zones to, say, 35-foot wide, healthy riparian zones with trees.
And define what a riparian zone is.
It's it's the creek bank. It's that stream side zone right there next to your creek. But if we restored it, say 35 or 50 feet wide from the top of the bank out, how much stormwater would that hold, or how much flooding would that prevent? And so there's huge ecologic value there, but there's also huge economic value because of this idea that we can use the natural infrastructure to prevent flooding as a part of that. And I appreciate you mentioning my website. Gretchen's going to be upset with me on it, but greeninterchange.org. And yeah, we've actually right now, it's kind of a little bit about what we're doing now. We're in our second year of our Plant a Tree for Tennessee campaign. We've got 20,000 trees that we're going to put in the ground on April 23rd, day after Earth Day, or I guess a couple of days after Earth Day. And we'll do that with a network of all volunteers. We hope to have about 2,000, 2,500 volunteers in the field planting those trees that day. And you can find out more about that on our website, greeninterchange.org. So we're super excited about that in the fall. And this is really engaging citizens. That's what it's doing. There's no politics. There's really no governments involved in it. There's a few businesses that love it, and they're supporting it. But this is citizens. People come to our website, they make a small donation for the tree, and then they plant the tree wherever they want. And these are small trees. But what we found is over the years is that, and I've been doing this a long time, so when I reference over the years, it's from some of that experience as well. What we found is that our survivability rate on those trees is somewhere around 85%, which is really high. But that's because people are getting 2 or 3 trees and they're putting them in their yard, and baby, they want those trees to survive. So they're giving them really good care, really good care. I've had other sites. There was an old, we called it the green field, but it was an old off-spec glass storage facility, I'll call it. It was an old landfill. And we had 18% survival there. We planted the whole thing, 6,000 trees. The deer lined up and had a buffet on my trees. So that's the only way I can describe it.
Were the trees protected? Did they have the plastic guard at the bottom?
They were not. No. Actually, some of them, we planted some bigger ones and they were protected, but the smaller ones, when you're planting 6,000 trees, you can't really, the actual cost on them is less than $1 a piece. So you can't really justify, you want to get, you're going to accept some mortality. There's just no way around it. So
yeah, I mean, 85% is a very, very good.
85% is really good, really good.
Yeah, so that brings to mind, just again, to underscore how interrelated the environment and economics are. Milton Friedman, the economist, has a famous statement. He said, nobody washes a rental car, meaning if you own the property, you take really, really good care of it. And that's right. True. I think we walk our trees, look at our trees all the time.
Yep.
Again, and if you have it in your front yard or backyard, you obviously going to care a lot about it. So
right.
I think that partnering with property owners and protecting property ownership as a value, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And
I one of my a couple of stories there. One of the tree days we did in 2018. This was with our partner Tennessee Environmental Council. We did 180,000 trees 190,000 trees in a day with 25,000 volunteers all across Tennessee. We're in all 95 counties. To add to that story, I had a corporate partners, waste management, a friend of mine, Stacy Cawthorn, and she came to me and said, John, I want us to take trees to CSX, to the rail yard down here in Nashville. And I thought, man, those guys aren't going to want these trees. They're not going to want these trees. I did it anyway. I went out there I had, a couple of hundred oak trees, nice Shumard oaks, some bur oaks maybe, and some other mast producing trees. Within 30 minutes, I was scheduled to be there for a half a day. Within 30 minutes, John, every one of those trees were gone. And half of those guys were coming back going, well, can you get us more? And, my point with that is that, trees, everybody loves them. I still never met anybody who said, I just hate trees, and it's true. You got to get the right tree in the right place. You got to be mindful of where power lines are because, we want our power to be reliable and cost effective. Sure. But, the co-op that I'm in, the electric co-op that I'm in, they've got a program, right tree in right place. And they very much support our reforestation efforts and working with the homeowners to make sure that you get the right tree in the right place. So
that's great. And tell us about your plans and dreams kind of going forward. What would you like to see both in Tennessee and also around the country, and just how would you challenge other communities? What can just regular citizens do?
So just go to your local nursery, and plant trees. Just go and get them and plant them. Make sure you plant them the right time. November, we usually start on Veterans Day. We did a great planting this past, it was actually November 12th. Congressman Green was there. We put in about 10 oak trees to honor our veterans and first responders up in Clarksville. And then you can go to about middle of March. They really say the first week in April, but I like to try to get them in before that. But, so go out and plant trees. Now, our vision, we've got about 373 interstate interchanges in Tennessee. We're going to plant them all. Or everyone that TDOT will let us plant. That's one of our pieces. The other thing that we want to do is we want to really expand our Plant a Tree for Tennessee campaign so that anybody who wants to plant a tree, we'd like to do 100,000 trees in a day. I did 190,000 with my the Tennessee Environmental Council, but we want to do, 100,000 in a day. And if I can do 100,000 in a day here in Tennessee, if I could get all the other states in with me, well, then that'd be 5 million, right? Mm-hmm. So we ought to be able to do 5 million trees in a day. And, just one of the things I think about, one of the greatest things about our those big tree planting days is the social part of it. Yeah. It brings people together. I've done those days where I've been out in the field and I've had the most hardcore conservative and the biggest liberal. I gave one of them a tree. I gave one of them a shovel. I said, try to work together. They got more than one tree in the ground. Let me tell you, they did, because everybody loves trees. Everybody loves trees, and they have so much value in our communities.
Well, John, that's a great vision and challenge. So 5 million if every state did 100,000.
5 million in a day. Let's just do it in a day. Because we
know. Yeah,
go ahead.
That's a great challenge. Now on the when to plant trees, here's a practical question. So,
okay,
what are the times of year that are not good to plant trees? What are the riskiest times?
The summer's going to be the riskiest because, and let me start with, so from November to March, that tree gets in the ground. The top of the tree is dormant, but the roots are not dormant. They're growing. They're connecting to the soil so that they're then able to absorb water, get that water and nutrients up into the stems so that in the spring, when the buds start forming and popping out, it's not like deprived, if you will. So having that over the winter, basically, for that tree to absorb water and get the roots really good and connected is really the key. So that time,
that's starting November. Yeah.
Yep. November to March. And actually you can start in October, but you need to make sure you're getting water. Down here, we'll still sometimes have, drought conditions into October. But then of course, the flip side is in the summertime, it's hot, it's dry. The tree's already got leaves on it. So it's looking for nutrients and water to support the growth that's already going on, the photosynthesis that's already going on. And so, you've really got to keep them watered. And even if you sometimes keep them watered, they either die or they just don't do as well because they can't get the water and nutrients that they need. So, and typically another saying that we have in the business is the first year you plant a tree, it sleeps. The second year it creeps. And the third year it leaps. So, once you get it in the ground, it's trying to get those roots connected. That's just critical to that survivability of that tree.
And just to give a disclaimer, like every region of the country is different. Where Tennessee, you're gonna have more success over the quote winter to do well farther north. Because the point is, as long as the ground isn't frozen, because that's what the foresters suggest here too, is in the fall, and take advantage of that water coming up. And so in fact, in terms of invasive species, some of the advice I've gotten is to do those treatments in the fall, because over the winter is when the tree, it'll kind of permeate through the tree.
Right. I mean, it's grab and hold even tighter.
Yeah.
So if you can get those invasives out in the fall, or even in the late summer, it's tougher on us, but it's probably a little better in terms of keeping them out of there. And so just a couple minutes we have left. There's a lot of debate about forest fires. Who's to blame? Is it purely an issue of rising temperatures, industrialization, so forth, or is it bad forest management? And as an organization, our view is, look, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, and acknowledge that, it's okay to acknowledge that, yes, temperatures are rising, but you also have to account for good forest management and good stewardship. Absolutely, yeah.
What is your view? Does your organization weigh in on that, and just what are good forestry practices?
Well, fire has always been a natural part of the forest cycle. And so, all the fire suppression that we've done over the years has left tons and tons and tons of fuel on the forest floor. So yes, the temperatures are rising. That's definitely one of those contributing factors. But that fuel, if somebody, doesn't put their campfire out, or they're using a chainsaw without a spark arrestor on it, there's always that possibility. Or you're out there in a kind of a drought condition. We have fire bans here quite often. And one of the things, I want to make another plug for my Plant a Tree for Tennessee, but of course we had the Gatlinburg fires about 4 or 5 years ago, and we're still up there reforesting some of those areas. In fact, we're working with a partner up there, and through our Plant a Tree for Tennessee campaign, we've got a distribution point in Gatlinburg for folks to get trees to reforest their areas. So we're excited about that partnership. We've also got a great partnership with Firestone. They're going to have some of their complete auto care sites as our as distribution points, and so we're excited about that. But yeah, Plant a Tree for Tennessee. You can find out more on our website, greeninterchange.org.
Great, fantastic. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much, John. And so we'll plant a tree for Tennessee, but also we accept your challenge, and let's see if we can get 5 million trees planted. Let's
do it, man. I would love to come back and talk about it and see how we can figure out how to make it happen.
Well, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time. And again, you can follow John and his good work at greeninterchange.org, if I got that right. And we're at C3newsmag.com. Again, I'm John Hart. This has been Right Voices, and I look forward to another